Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of R.E.A.L It In Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Sowell, with my wife, Mrs. Sowell.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing? And this is the R.E.A.L It In Podcast where we keep it real. I'm with some very passionate people in First Baptist Church of Merrifield, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation talking about discipleship. I'm ready to introduce Minister Esther Sheppard and also Minister Kimberly Broome. You guys get a chance to introduce yourself and your position in First Baptist Church of Merrifield. I'll start with First Lady Esther Sheppard.
Thank you. Great to be with you today. I am so excited for the opportunity, but I am Esther Sheppard, and I am titled as First Lady of First Baptist Church of Merrifield. I'm the wife of Pastor Paul Sheppard, and also a licensed minister and associate minister at First Baptist.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Kimberly?
Good evening. Thank you for having me on with you all this evening. My name is Kimberly Broome. I am an associate minister at First Baptist Church of Merrifield, where I have been serving for 13 years in other capacities. I was licensed in 2022. It was First Lady and we were together, who is now Minister Esther Sheppard. So we've been in this thing together now for a couple of years.
And again, thank you guys for spending a little part of your day and joining us today. Because again, this is a very important conversation. I've been looking forward to speaking with both of you. Let's start with First Lady Esther Sheppard. Before we talk about discipleship, can you share a little bit part about your journey in ministry and in terms of where you started in terms of serving church and serving in ministry?
Sure. From a youngster, my parents were very active in church where I grew up in outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so that was my first, foundation of ministry, seeing my parents engage, my mother in the choir, father teaching Sunday school, father was also a trustee. And then, of course, they brought us, and not just brought us and left us, but they engaged. So I got to see them as an example of how ministry outside of the home occurs and inside of the church. And so that was my foundation, how it started. And so I was engaged in, various activities within the church, and then grew up to participate in, choir, the Teens for Christ choir. And as a younger adult, then began to honestly stray away from the church for a little while until God brought me back in, drew me back in. And at that time, I came back in as in various capacities in pastoral support, pastoral care, hospitality ministry, and many other ministries, including deaf ministry, interpreting for the deaf and hard of hearing. And so then my path brought me to meeting Pastor Sheppard, marrying him, traveling around the United States with him, as well as within his ministry. And so I've taught, classes for women, young people, and on various levels, and has now brought me to First Baptist, where engaged as I had been teaching in women's ministry, as well as new disciples classes as well. So they kind of have come full circle.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you've had a full circle experience with just working in the church, working with God's people. And so we really do appreciate that background and just, being able to understand, like, you do have a passion for this. This is not just, something you're doing because, you have to, but this is something that you're doing because you have a passion for God's people. Mm-hmm. And we really appreciate that. Minister Kimberly Broome, we're going to come to you next with our next question. We understand that you graduated from Howard University. And so with that being said, we wanted to know, how did your time at Howard shape the way that you see the church's role in guiding and equipping new believers?
Thank you. Great question. So yes, I am a recent graduate of Howard University School of Divinity. which was the place to prepare me to engage with community and through social justice in a Black church context. What I learned is that the church is more than just a place of worship. The church has been the epicenter to the community. And so that spiritual formation and community engagement go hand in hand. That is what the gospel ultimately calls us to do, which is not just disciple new believers, but also address the problems and challenges and the needs of the community. So for me, Howard taught me to continue on this tradition of the church as a living witness of God's justice and love, to shape believers to be faithful disciples and agents of active agents of change.
That's wonderful. It sounds like community was like a streamline, like something consistent in your time at school, which really influenced where you are today and how you've positioned yourself within First Baptist Church of Merrifield. I mean, you're speaking to believers as they first come through the doors, ready to give their lives to Christ. And so that's wonderful. Like, I really appreciate that. And I think for the both of you, like, it's the question on the table right now is, if you had to describe this ministry as, I guess you guys are head of the discipleship program for First Baptist Church of Merrifield. So in regards to that, in 3 words, could you describe the program or your perspective of the program?
First would be engaging. Engaging, because we are definitely wanting to engage with the members, not just in terms of scripture, but engaging for real life application. Because the truth is that we may not see them every Sunday or throughout the week. And so what are we going to give the people that will form them and shape them, not just for Sunday, but throughout the whole week? So the first word I would offer is engaging.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would say igniting. Engaging, most definitely. That was that was my word. But igniting is definitely what I feel that this class does, or we intend to do. We definitely want to engage them, but we also want to ignite what is already placed within them, which is that power that was given to them from God and the Holy Spirit. And so we want to ignite them and give them the knowledge that they may already have. So reignite it and or ignite it for those that are just coming in fresh and new and see that they want their lives to be changed and want to know that how can my life be changed? How can it be ignited because I've now connected to Jesus Christ? And so we definitely look to ignite or reignite what is already within them.
I think the third word is community. Because when you come to a church, whether you are already, baptized and have professed faith, or you are new, you're still looking for community. And so what happens in discipleship is that you begin with your little group of people that you're with. But once you're done, you go out into the larger church community to serve.
Exactly.
We have ushers who have come from discipleship ministry. We have people who are now singing in the choir. So it is also about the community that you will form while you are in discipleship and afterwards.
So it sounds like what you ladies just said was engage, ignite, and community. And that's wonderful. I just can say from my experience, I definitely think that the new members class, the discipleship program, was definitely engaging. We was able to have the opportunity to learn about our spiritual gifts. We were able to learn about, Jesus Christ and the importance of the crucifixion and, the importance of salvation. And so we come in, as fresh canvases per se, but with the perspective of our own life experiences. And so I definitely would say that the program is definitely engaging. It does ignite, curiosity more about who is Jesus and how do I fit in the body and how can I help within First Baptist Church in Merrifield? Like, where can I use my gifts? And community is definitely felt the moment you walk into the church's door. So I agree with you, ladies. I thank you so much. The way that y'all just did that back and forth like that, you go, girls. And so now we're going to be transitioning into, just wanting to know more about you guys' vision and just teaching. How do you go back and forth with the teaching and different learning styles of people, as different classes come through? And so our first question on the floor is, in what ways does the program connect back to the church's overall mission and vision? One of you can just take this question and the other person can take the next one.
Sure. Well, with, part of kind of the mission vision being, moving from great to greater, taking what is currently there and moving it to another level. And Minister Broome and I have, very similar, visions in reference to the discipleship ministry. She has been, part of, First Baptist Merrifield a lot longer than I have. And so she's seen a lot of the changes and a lot of the growth and a lot of the areas where, it has stumbled, where it has failed, what have you. And so, what we want to do is be ever so careful is to undergird the vision that Pastor Sheppard has, is not just growing numerically, but growing spiritually. And so with this discipleship class, you want to make sure that the material is relevant and look to grow the material beyond where it currently is based on its curriculum. And then also the challenges become when you do have those that have different learning styles. We try to tailor to, make sure we have a PowerPoint for those that are visual. So we're not just talking to them the whole time. And then also, sometimes we have a video. It's somebody that gets distracted easy. There's a video there so that they can engage that way. We want to make sure that they're able to extract and learn, and that the curriculum we currently have is not too high above their learning curve, or where they are able to learn. So that's kind of where I see the vision now and where it can go. But again, most of all, standing with Pastor Sheppard for what his overall vision is.
I agree with everything that Minister Esther just said. And I just want to add the digital vision that we now have to incorporate into discipleship ministry. While we currently meet virtually, there will be other things that we will have to look for in terms of practices for streamlining, just signing up members, how we communicate with members, getting the information out to them. So that is the next phase of how do we utilize digital methods that will enhance the discipleship ministry.
I think my next question is, how do you define successful discipleship in the context of our church community? Like, what would be a success story from any individuals who's came through this program?
Well, I think it goes back to those three words that we started off with: engage, ignite, and community. So transformation doesn't happen right away. It happens over time, but you see it where there's whatever aha moment that they may have in discipleship and how they live out that aha moment of, oh, I think I can do this, I can serve. For example, I'm just thinking about one person who decided to be a part of the culinary ministry. We didn't know that was coming, but because of being in discipleship, the discipleship sessions, she recognized the need. And that was the aha moment of, oh, I think I can serve here. And then just watching them as they serve out this new calling, if you want to say, of sorts. And go ahead, Minister Esther.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, I look at across the breadth of the congregation and look at, there's nothing more, I think, delightful than to see, even before classes are finished. And I know there's some churches that they don't let you work in ministry before you finish your classes because they want to ensure that, you know where you're going or what have you. But we have several members that either have reconnected with our body and said, okay, well, I'm ushering now, and went ahead and put that uniform on while they were engaging in class. I look at the two of you and I see how you all came in and look where you are now. You are, engaging and moving us forward, undergirding that vision that pastor has. And then also too, even enhancing it, because you're talking about the digital age, and we're talking about a podcast, things that are happening now. So I look at you two, I look at, those that again are ushering, and those that are, doing things with video and on different ministries. And so that's essentially what it is to get to work. But then beyond that is, how do you bring others into that, in that sense of community? How do they go out and say to their family members, I'm working here in the church. I would love for you to bring your gifts and talents and come on. They may not join right away, but if they come and they bring, that's another way that community continues to grow beyond the inside of the body.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And I think, speaking of community, as we're, one of my favorite moments in the church is at the end of service, so close to the end of service, after we receive the word that you guys offer invitation for people to come to the altar, and either whether to join the ministry or just, if they have no relationship with God, just to come in and at least start that process. But I wanted to talk about terms of this generation currently today. Now, me and my wife, we're considered older Gen Z, but technically millennial. We're like right in that tail end. Like, we're like young millennials, but old Gen Zs. Yeah. But with that, we know about the attendance, of this generation attending church. It's very important, but we definitely have been seeing decline. But there's been a recent study that now that we're seeing that that more men also are starting to show up back in ministry, and women are actually, or at least are attending less. And I know that discipleship is actually the important part of that. But speaking on with the younger generation, what do you think in terms of the importance of actually bringing the younger generation back into ministry, and what is it that the ministry today is doing that is hindering people to come into the church?
I'm sure Minister Broome has a mouthful, so
I know.
It's time to keep it real now.
This is a part of the podcast. We keep it real. Keep it real. Yes,
that's why I'm going to yield, and I'll piggyback as needed.
Okay. There you go.
So young people are struggling with how we have presented Christianity, how we practice it. The things that we say are not showing up presently for them. So the church is saying one thing and acts a total different way. You say love your neighbor, but yet we don't love our neighbor. When we choose to exclude people because of a sexual orientation, they might be too old, they might be the wrong color, they might be the wrong gender. And these are real issues that we have to deal with, of just, and even in a Black church context, that we do have some gender discrimination that happens. Like, there are still women who can't preach from the pulpit. It's not happening in our church, but there are some churches out there that do this. So we have these things, we have these really great, nice Christianese language, and yet we do the total opposite of what it proclaims. I also, this is just my theory, that younger generations want a more explicit truth telling of gospel than an implicit telling. I'm from a generation where it seemed like the elders themselves wanted to try to speak as Jesus in a parable, and you're just really looking for, can you just give me a real answer? Should I go to grad school or not? Not telling me, well, you know, it's going to all work out and the Lord's going to make a way. That's not telling me, do you think I should go to grad school or not? You know, so people want some real explicit truth. And part of that real explicit truth is being able to handle the difficult questions that someone may have and ask. For example, let's do David and Bathsheba. The difficult question. Well, why? What was this a real interaction of David and Bathsheba, they might ask? Did David really assault Bathsheba? And some of us are going to have to say, well, for me, you ask me, I'm going to tell you, yes, he did. Because he was the king, it's abuse of power. So, let's start there. And then we can have a conversation about the abuse of power that we also see in our modern day context. But we get hung up on minor things that happen. That, again, this is that gender stuff where we blame Bathsheba. She wasn't wrong. She was minding her business.
Bad.
But that's part of being explicit. Just make it plain. You know, it was David abuse of power. His abuse of power violated Bathsheba. What does that look like in a modern day context? Are there men who still have an abuse of power today? Absolutely. And so when we start having these kinds of conversations, now we are forming the people in their faith. How shall I act? If I'm ever in leadership, or if I'm a person that's in authority, how should I act with my peer groups? How should I act with people of the opposite sex? I'm going to stop right there.
And so the piggyback that I have in reference to that is when, in tying back to the question in regards to young people or young males or what have you, these are the deep things of God that go deeper than what many in our generations and, some of the older generations really learned or were willing or were never willing to talk about. And so it's almost like, you're kind of sweeping those things under the rug. But again, as Minister Broome was saying, young people come with those questions. Did it really happen? What in the Bible is real? Did Jonah really get swallowed by a whale? Because we've been told that since we were in Sunday school as little kids. And to this day, until I went to seminary, I'm sorry to say, I was like, oh, this must have really happened. It did not, but but we don't know that because it's not necessarily being taught. But the young people are coming with these questions, and if they're not coming with the questions, they're sitting at the coffee shop down the street together with a Bible, doing that interpretation on their own, or reading it and saying, "Here's what I believe," and so And then when they ask the questions, we're not quite ready for it, or we push them away. Oh, you're taking that too much out of context. But I want to understand the Bible. This is what is given to me to understand. I want to understand it. So back to the fact that young men are coming. Those young men are coming with those types of questions, those type of thoughts. They're coming back because outside in the world, they're being abused. They're being abused in many ways. I mean, you can't even be on a spring break without getting pulled over and ending up dead. And so they're coming with those concerns, the heaviness on their shoulder. And we have to be open enough as the people of God. We have to be open enough to say, bring your all. Bring all your dust, bring all your mess, bring all your concerns, because it's a hospital. We say that the church is a hospital. It is. It's a place where we're supposed to bring everything, whether it's good or whether it's bad, whether we're homosexual, whether we're bisexual, whatever. All of that was in the pages of the Bible, but we forget. Ready to point fingers. And so back to even with that, with our discipleship class. And when you talk about how you have to make sure that you're kind of covering everyone and that everyone feels welcome, we had to make sure that we were calling someone in particular by, the right gender. And or when we teach, we have to make sure that we're not being offensive, but we have to also make sure we're honoring God. So it's all of that. And embracing those that come, whether it be male, female, young, or old, but especially the young people that are coming back. They're coming for a reason. God is sending them back for a reason, because remember, they had left the church. Now they are returning to the church, especially young men. So they're coming for something, and they need a covering, and they need honesty and integrity from those that they're reaching out to learn from.
Yeah, I think that was all the good points that you made, and with also this gap, whether from older to younger generation, it's also, as we bridge that gap, is also receiving constructive criticism, or even just whether how young people can come correct into church. God, I do believe there is such thing as disobedience and coming in correctly, and then also same way of the older generation receiving, the younger generation too, and say, hey, this is not a welcoming environment. I don't feel safe here. But I just want to ask, as you guys are running the discipleship program, what type of feedback have you guys received and that you implemented in changing to make it a more, I would say, a more impactful program to discipleship?
Well, I think one thing that we try and do, because we do have a curriculum, is we want to hold the teachers to that curriculum. So for instance, we don't necessarily want them veering off too much, because then you get into waters where you're not quite always able to answer the questions that come. And so what I mean by that is to ensure that what you are sharing is truly foundational and truly in the Word of God, beyond what's in the curriculum if you decide to veer off. So that's one of the ways that that we try to reel that in, or make sure that that stays stable.
Yeah. The other feedback that I have gotten now this is for being positive, of we want more like an extension of whatever the lesson was about. So sometimes, because of that level of engagement with the curriculum that we have, it is a very cursory view to get you acclimated, situated with a level of foundation for this new walk in Christ. But what has happened the last two sessions has been, I wish we could have a little bit more of this. And so it has me thinking, what kind of maybe special classes that we could run outside or in between the discipleship cycle of classes that would be something special, like maybe just a more in-depth look at how the Bible became and its origins. Because while we do talk about that in one of our sessions, it's so much that we can only cover a small fraction of its origins. But if we could do a little bit more of church history kind of thing, that would be nice, because not everyone is going to go to seminary. Not everyone is going to sign up even just for, say, like, take a little class in Old Testament, like get your little certificate or something. They're not going to do that. So we have to be prepared for some of these challenges to add more to the curriculum ourselves.
And I think that's good too, because of the flexibility of our pastor. If we go to him and say, here's kind of what we're hearing, he'll say, we'll do a Bible study. He'll challenge you to kind of add on a class that way. And then, so that does help. But sometimes, again, you need more than just maybe a 4-week Bible study. You may need, kind of an 8 to 16 week class or what have you. But at least there's that opportunity to present it to pastor and say, here's something that we think that we could build upon. And he would be open to that, which is a great thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, just from my experience and what I'm seeing from, other individuals within my generation, is there's these many gap ministries that are starting on the back end outside of church, for better or for worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, individuals, young people are very hungry to know God's word. I hear what mama told me. I heard what grandma told me, but what is it saying? And are you reading the same thing that I'm getting? Because I just read this and this sounds pretty crazy, and pastor ain't ever said this in church. You know what I'm saying? And so, with that being said, and you guys seeming like, it's from just these last 2 sessions I've had that's came through here recently, we want to know more about this. We need more history. We need more context. Have you guys ever considered, not more so in a curriculum, because it sounds like the discipleship program is very structured. There is a program. There is these things that we need to get, taught to these individuals. But my question is, have you guys ever considered maybe small groups, like most I don't want to say modern churches, but more dated church, more young churches are having these small group sessions where maybe for our setup, our deacons would lead them. They'll meet outside of, the Sunday service. And these are the people that you came in with. And right. So now we're having our own individual sessions, having that extra time to get that history, having that extra time to have those more intimate conversations. I think that will help build the community aspect that you guys were saying earlier. And it's also engaging, because we need more of that time. We want to ask the real questions. Did he really get ate up, swallowed up by the well, or what really went down with Bathsheba and King David? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does this look like in the church today? Like, we just saw this come down the news the other day. Like, and so we just not going to talk about how these pastors is going down like this in 2025. Like, so what do you guys take or thoughts about, other ministries having small groups to continue on the conversation about new discipleships? Have you guys heard of this before? Is this something that you guys would be interested in? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So at one point, this was even before I showed up at Merrifield, they did have small groups. I don't know what happened, why it fell apart or it doesn't exist anymore. I don't remember why, but I know they had it. And how I can't remember exactly how it was structured. I just know the person that I was in conversation with was one of the leaders at the time. So, and they did, just as you said, getting together and meeting, and they were just having these conversations, excuse me, about the Bible. And that's something that has always still been in the back of my mind. It's like, well, if we did it before, why couldn't we do it again? I don't know why we aren't doing anything like that. I just think it might just be having to do it, and who would be interested in being a small group leader, to have the extra time of getting together. And while we do offer our regular Bible studies to happen Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, again, people's schedules may not accommodate as such. And so what now becomes the other alternative for people to sit and meet and gather in community?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely heard of small groups, and I've never been part of one. When I was in Savannah, Georgia, there was a church, used to be called Savannah Christian Church, and they thrived off of small groups. And, to the point where while I was there, they built, established 3 satellite churches, because you had these small groups, and then you had where they then kind of had pastors that were planted in these areas, and they, oversaw the particular satellite church. And then there were small groups from there, and it just continued to morph and continue to grow. And not sure why that model is not part of Merrifield, but I do feel that it is something that could be possible if it went back to where the deacons had the family groups where they're responsible for, families within their jurisdiction. That could be a pod, and the deacon wouldn't necessarily be expected to kind of oversee it, but it might be someone that's in that pod or that area that could establish that small group. I believe that it's probably happening in some communities based on the personalities of some of our members. So I do think it is happening in some ways. They invite people over their homes, they fellowship, they may start talking about the word or whatever, but it's not considered a small group because it's not something that's ongoing, but it is something that I believe that happens in most churches, but it's just not defined. But yes, I think it is something that would probably be an extension of discipleship ministry, because then you have that synergy that continues, and then you can just do check-in with those folks who are kind of managing that. And so on the other piece of that is that's where you see church growth as well, because then you have people that are maybe not connected to Merrifield that are part of those small groups, but then they become connected because of the small group. Yeah. But it is something that I think is a great model. And a lot of the churches that are very large, they have small groups, and they're those pocket groups, but you have to manage them. You have to have someone that's committed to managing them, because then you have many churches. Exactly. And you have many pastors. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Many
ministries, then you
many
have
distractions, many, right. Then it turns into something else. And
right. Exactly.
I understand. I get where you come from.
Yeah, and and it was a very good point you guys made, because I also came from small groups in college, because again, going to younger generation, small groups were thriving with their part, busy, college schedules and everything. And then especially for young adults going into late 20s, early 30s, is like that's been a big factor. But those are very good points you guys made. As we're wrapping things up, I just want to ask, with discipleship, it comes with a lot of opportunities to not only to impact people's lives, but also your life as well. And I just want to know what has discipleship or running discipleship program has done for your spiritual journey, for both of you.
It was good, babe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, it has challenged me spiritually to grow, to learn more. Because when I first started teaching for discipleship class before, a directing with Minister Kim, is I was like terrified, even though I taught before, but it was just all new group, new people, all of that. And so I think for me, it has challenged me, and it was also part of why I wanted to go back to school and learn and really get more foundational knowledge. And it has been a pleasure also partnering with Minister Broome because of her knowledge, of her years of experience, superintendent, running, different, programs, and the fire and the passion that she has for social justice, and how she has the mindset for where the church has come from and where we need to go to, especially in the digital mindset and things. So we work really well together with, okay, we need to get rid of this paper and we need to go forward with, okay, how are we going to change this and change that? And so those are the things that kind of give me that excitement and that that ignites my fire as well. And for me, that's what has kind of kept me going, kept me excited, kept me engaged. And it's been a joy for me. And I'm looking forward to kind of the next, because I know we have things that we want to change, that we want to do, that will enhance. And so that we all will continue to draw people and keep them engaged because of how we initiate the process. So for me, it's just been a blessing.
Yeah, it's been good for me too. When I started with discipleship ministry, Sister Darlene Falls was who I was co-laboring in the journey of discipleship with. And what I have that I might be on display is because of her mentorship and her tutelage to the discipleship ministry. And I intend to keep it going as long as I am here, that it will always honor First Baptist Church of Merrifield, but also honor God in equipping saints for the kingdom. And I am always challenged by looking at the curriculum with whatever fresh set of people come through. And it is, how can we do this better? that is just.
Yeah.
Because as a teacher, and also if I'm a participant, I'm thinking about how would I really respond to this as a person who uses electronic devices all the time. And, so my thing has been, okay, well, how do we make this better? How do we make this a little bit more streamlined? But overall, it has been a very, very good program for us. I enjoy it. I enjoy the responses that we get, just to see and hear what people are thinking, and making these notations like, oh, that's a good question. We might need to, how do we reword that for the curriculum? Or how do we make sure that we keep that point in there as we go along with each session?
Well, thank you, ladies. We enjoyed this episode of R.E.A.L It In Podcast. We really want to thank you guys for your time. I think that when people listen back to this, they should definitely hear how excited you guys are to always be improving this program, to know that there's community here, and 3, know that there's love. There is 1 Corinthians 13 type of love here at First Baptist Church of Merrifield, and you have dedicated and devoted members of the body of Christ willing to, make that extra time to commit to these programs, commit to your spiritual growth and your spiritual journey. And so we want to thank you again for joining us. This has been a wonderful time. Thank you, babe, for doing such a great job. I really just enjoy this time and appreciate you, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
All right. Take care.